Right. So it's me, Valerie Wallace Fine Arts, here in my basement studio, 0447 in Ornoano, 04473. And today we're going to do the Mossy Bridge here. And okay, first thing you're going to want is a big pool of white and then maybe two smaller ones. And then I have a little black. If you have purple, you'll want purple for the background and stuff. If you don't have purple, I'm going to put a little tiny bit of red and a little bit of blue on there. To make the purple background. So I'm gonna put a little bit of red on there, a little bit of blue, and I'm just gonna put green on because I figure you guys all have green rather than make green. But of course you can make green with yellow and blue. Does everybody have some paint? If you don't have green, you're gonna use a little bit of blue and yellow. We'll get to that later. And if you have purple or a light purple, that's even better. We'll do that. Okay. Let me turn this light down. I don't know. I'll fiddle around with the lights in a minute. It always is so washed out. But it has these kind of spring, the colors are, the grass is really yellow and it's supposed to be kind of foggy. And there's two ways of doing the fogginess. One is to paint the sky and then paint really light trees on top. And the other way is to paint the trees kind of medium and then paint a wash over the top. And that's what we're going to do because in a way, it kind of creates that foggy feeling by literally painting a layer on top. Okay, so we're going to do that. There's two ways of doing it, but that's the way we're going to do it today. We're going to start with some purple. Just maybe drawing sized because we're going to set this picture up. I'm going to take a little red and put it with the blue. I'll just kind of mix these two together here. Okay, and that's going to give me a purple. If I have a little more red, it's going to be a little more magenta. If I have more blue, it's just going to be more blue. All right, it's going to be kind of like that. And then I'm going to push a little bit of white in there. It doesn't have to be super, super light, just kind of in the middle somewhere. Kind of like grapes. All right, or maybe not that dark, I don't know. Looks kind of like that. We're gonna start with a line that's gonna be right here, okay? So what I would say is find the middle of the paper, whatever you have, and go down a little bit and make the line right about here, okay? Give yourself a little space here. Don't get it, this is pretty low to the bottom here, but that's because it's a smaller piece of paper. So be up a little bit higher, okay? We're gonna make an arch over this line for the lower part of these stones here, okay? And you're painting it in purple, but ultimately it's gonna be green. So the idea isn't that it needs to be this fat, thick purple line. It's more like you'd be sketching it with like a pencil or something like that, but we don't sketch with a pencil when we're painting because we're painting. We want to do it like that. So I might go to the middle of the line, go up a little bit, round this to this side, and round that to that side. And it wouldn't have a super tall rainbow shape, arch shape, because it's kind of flat, okay? And I think the thing to remember that this one it has a feeling of a crumbling bridge out in the woods and maybe a little creepy. We're actually going to put some black on here. So we're not looking for something that looks like it's in the Queen's, castle gardens. You know what I mean? Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to make this line a little bit thicker because it kind of represents how thick the bridge is, because in a way it's the shadow underneath. And if it's just a skinny line, then it's going to be like a little skinny walking bridge, but we want it big enough to ride your horse over. We want to make the bridge be in the river to be in a little bit of perspective. So what that means is that it's going to be a little narrower here and a little wider at the base of the picture. Okay, so what I would do is I'd look here. I mean, what you could do is say, okay, if I went straight down, it would be that would be the width of, that would be this line would be here. I want to go to the side. So I'm going to make a spot here. And the same thing here. You know, you can just eye it out. Okay. And what you're going to do is you're going to come from here to that line. And you're going to come from here to that, to that dot. So that's out that way. That's out this way. All right. The next thing you're going to do is right here is where the grass kind of goes against the base of the bridge. So we're doing a line where the yellow and the green are meeting. Okay, so that's like kind of right here. And you just bring in a line across here. And on the other side, it goes up a little. It goes from the water and it goes up. It's more of a hill. So you're going to be here and, you know, probably not above the arch. Right? Don't go up to here. Just go up a little bit like that. Then we're gonna do the stones. There's a stone archway like this. That's, you know, we'll add on the marks in there afterwards. But we're gonna make this. So probably start in the middle. Okay, rather than start down here and just whip it around and hope that it comes in the right place. I always like to start in the middle, and then you can go down this way, and you can go that way. And you stop when you get to the ground on that side. Sorry. The next thing we're gonna do is, there's this part of the bridge right here. So it's not quite to the top, it's just coming out the side here. All right, so you're gonna go out here like this. You can put another line next to it if you want to. Right? And on the other side in this picture is higher, but I would put it about the same place. All right, the other thing we want to do, I think this will be important. We'll paint over it again later, but see right here under the bridge on this side, there's a darker, it's actually the underside of the bridge. And you don't have it on the side. So what you do is you go to the middle, right here, and maybe make a little spot right here. And you're just going to go from here, and you're just going to make this arch, kind of like that. And then you kind of fill this in. So that half of it, in a sense, it's just the line on the underside of the arch is thicker on that one half. That's all you're really doing. All right, this is what we're gonna do next. In the background here, I know they're very faint, but that's the whole foggy thing. I'm trying to think of the other picture we did like this. But there are some lines that are representing skinny trees that are like way in the distance, okay? So you wanna get a pretty small brush. It doesn't have to be tiny, but something you have on the smaller side. Like it doesn't need to be like this small. This is maybe good like that. That's what I'm gonna use against you. So take the purple that you have, add a little bit of white to it, and we're gonna put in a few trees. And what I'm trying to put the trees more on, it's kind of a weird, there's a weird reason, but you know, the river is going to go continue like this. And so you can't really have trees like right in the middle, even though that one's like that. But so you're going to put a few on this side and a few on this side. All right. And all you really have to do is make a line. And it doesn't have to be straight, and it can be tippy. It can be craggly. It can be anything. Okay. So, I mean, I can make a tree line that goes, you know, it can be a funny line like that. It can be a nice straight one. It can be a leaning one. But you want them to go right up to the top. All right, so I'm going to put a few over here too. Sometimes I start at the bottom, and then what happens is you push a little harder at the bottom, and then you kind of let go as you go up, and they get thinner. All right. You know, ultimately, we're going to have some bigger ones on top, but you're going to put some up here. The painting that we're going from is a watercolor. So that's why the way that the things mush around and everything is because it's with a lot of water, and that's just how it works. But I like using watercolors for landscapes because they're a little more fluid, and you don't, using a photograph is a lot harder. It's a lot more intimidating. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to put this yellow that's going to be on the grass. All right. The opposite of purple is yellow. And so what happens when you put yellow and purple together, if you get it in the right amounts, it's going to turn brown. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the purple to make our yellow a little bit gold. Okay. The first thing you're going to do is make the yellow you have a little bit lighter. So I'm going to get a little bit bigger brush. It's kind of big, but I'm going to use this one. Okay. I get a little water. And what you're going to do is take one of these smaller pools of white, and you're going to, this is a lot of yellow. I don't need this much. I'm just going to take about this much. Okay. And I'm going to put that in one of the yellows like that. Right. And this is white and yellow. Yep. Just because this is pretty light. What? All right. Very, very light yellow. And then what I'm going to do, I'll save that yellow right on my brush, and I'll just take a little bit of the purple. Okay. And the purple's light already too. So that's going to make it so that it doesn't get too dark. If I put dark purple in my light yellow, it's just going to turn purple. All right. So I'll put that in there. And I think what's going to happen is it's going to be a little bit on the gray side. Can you see it? I don't know. It's a little gray. So what I'm going to do is take more yellow and add that in there. And what you should get is kind of a yucky brownish yellow. Oops. I don't think you can tell from the way the light is. If it doesn't work, just take a little yellow and a little bit of, I forgot to say you could get some brown out, but you could use brown instead. Are you getting? Yeah, see mine, it looks, I would just add more yellow, okay? Because ultimately the purple is going to change the color. It's not going to be bright, but it should, the more yellow you put in there, it should still be yellow. You can try it. If it doesn't work, like I said, you could just put yellow on there, or you can put brown and yellow together. Or maybe you even already have kind of a gold. But if I put this on here, it's going to be like that. Right. And I guess when you're doing it, you can kind of, don't be afraid to kind of go over the purple a little bit when you're putting these things on here. Okay. How'd yours work, Monica? Did it work or not?
I ended up putting some brown.
Okay.
I was feeling lazy.
Yeah, I mean, if I hadn't messed up the stupid thing in the first place, I might have remembered to say get brown, but I didn't because I was frazzled. You think you finally figure out your stupid Zoom, and then still messes up. All right. So this is, I'm going to take a much bigger brush. All right. And I will get a little water on that. And a little bit of color is going to go a long way with the white. So start with not too much. All right, so I'm going to put just about this much purple and this white. All right, and then I'm just going to paint this in here. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right. And if it's a little darker than I want, I'll just take my brush and I'll take a scoop of white like that, and I'll just blend it in. And I think you know, even with acrylics, you can kind of have them a little more of a watercolor consistency. Just add a little bit more water and that'll thin it out. Because see how that kind of covers the trees completely? So what I'm going to do is just kind of rinse my brush off, have a lot more water, and I'll just kind of spread that out. Okay. If it, you know, if it entirely obliterates your trees, then we'll just add them on top later. But it's just a thing to try. It would take, you know, you have to be kind of just, your white wants to be opaque and cover everything. So you have to have a little bit extra water to keep it from doing it. So I'm just gonna put a little water on there. That'll help. I'm trying to think what we did. Something snowy that we did recently, and it had kind of that effect. All right, the other thing we're going to want to do, I know the water in this one is more gray, but for now, let's put a little bit of lavender on where the water is going to go, okay? So some, you know, because it's reflecting the sky, and I think it would be pretty light anyway. All right, so I've got a pretty light, so that's red. There. I think when in doubt, add more white for this picture. Okay, and when you're coming to where you have the heavy purple along the edge of the grass, just kind of go over that, like side to side, kind of in and out like that. Yeah, and then we'll put it here too. Yeah, I think if anything, go, you know, put a little more white in this part. Even if it's not all blended in. Because overall, it's a pretty light picture. And if your area of sky right here, you know, is kind of on the dark side, you know, just, you know, get a little water on your brush, get a little more white paint, and just, you know, just blend a little bit more white in here because you do want that misty, you know, the misty woods where the ogres are under the bridges and stuff. So the green, you know, is kind of that olive green, right? So what that really is that you have green and you're putting a little bit of brown in there. And that's going to make it seem a little olive. If you have a reddish brown, you know, that's the way to go because red is the opposite of green. And so that's what makes it kind of brownish. The other thing is it's relatively light, especially like right in this area. So you might, first of all, take some white, you know, pretty good scoop because I get quite a bit of green, right? I'm going to put that with my green. All right, because, and this green is super bright. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the color that I have here, that gold. So whether you used just gold paint, whether you use the yellow and the purple mixed together, whether you use yellow and brown mixed together, whatever you have, if you have a little bit of this color, okay, so that's, for me, that's here. I'm going to take a scoop of that and I'm going to put that in my green. And because it's already has white and yellow in it, it's going to get lighter. I guess I'll get my brown. The easier way to go. So I have a little of this burnt sienna. Okay, I'm going to put a little, I won't need anywhere near that much, just a little. A bit like that. Do you have some, Veronica?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I have this super bright green. I'm going to take some of that brown. Put that in. Not too much, because a little bit's going to go a long way. Better a little bit, and then add more if you need it. It should just look kind of pale olive. All right, and I'm going to put that. It's also kind of what they do with, like, those people who do really great fairy pictures. You know, they have the watercolor, but they also have a lot of black. So we're going to do that with this time. If you don't want to, you can choose to use a brown instead. Right. Veronica's saying that she's not crazy about the color of the grass being like that. So what I'd like to have you do is have a little smaller brush, and we'll create a little bit of texture. I think we've done something similar to this before. So I think I would start, make sure you get a little bit of brown and a little bit of yellow. All right. So I have the two of them right here. I'm going to mix a little bit of that brown and that yellow, okay? And what you're going to do is, you know, depending on what color you want, so I have kind of a gold here now, is to get some texture of grass in here. The thing you want to do is put one color in kind of a cluster, in a clump, and then maybe go in with another color. But don't do like orange lines all over and then green lines all over, because it's kind of like a different kind of grass is kind of living in one little area, and then maybe a different kind of grass another. This will work. And even having a little bit of yellow, just the way that it is, depends on what you want it, what color. But so this is what I mean, is that you can go up to this grass here and just start putting in it. But like here, I'm going to have what I have for like orangey, goldish grass in kind of a section. And then maybe while I'm at it, I'll do it over here. I'll put a little bit, like maybe right along there, and maybe kind of like this. And I'll give you a little bit of time to play around with it. But any of these colors probably you have on your plate now would be good. Let's see, that's pretty light. I might even have something that's really with white. You see it? I guess barely. See it a little bit. This is kind of white, or white and yellow together. Like Veronica said, she wanted to have hers a little more green. So I'm going to take some of the color from the bridge and add that in there. Let's see, like I said, doesn't show. Just if you can have it all blend in, but your brush strokes are trying to go up and down. You know, if any of your colors just seem unnaturally vivid, I mean, the purple's going to kind of seem like that, but the other ones, just add brown to it, and that will kind of make them seem more natural. And that's kind of a general rule. The paint that you're given, if you buy a set of paints, the colors are just too vivid for the natural world. So you usually need a lot of white to make them a lot lighter, and then some brown in there to just dull them up a little bit. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Yeah, anything with some yellow in it will but it's supposed to seem springy. But again, you can make it any way you want. Just ideas. All right. If you don't have any of your like foggy trees, let's do that first. And what you want is a purple that's darker than the sky, but just barely, like just enough that you can see it. Okay. And then if you're all set and you can see a little bit of, it doesn't have to be the whole thing or anything, but if you can see a little bit of your trees, then don't worry about it. But if you feel like you have to touch them up, I've got a pretty small brush. I tried this. I would put this kind of color, let's see, like, and you could do it anyway, even if you can see them, you can add a few more. And sometimes the thing is about the trees too, is that they're, they kind of clump together too. You know how they can have one trunk, but it has a whole bunch of other ones that are all brought in the same place. So you don't want them to be all spaced out like you took a ruler and, put one every 1/4 of an inch. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is I would get a pretty small brush of some sort, whatever you have. Okay. And the key when you're doing that is that I think what we want to start with, my black has a bunch of white kind of mixed in there anyway, but take something you have, a little bit of white, put it with your black. I want it to stay pretty dark, but a lot of times just a little bit lighter is good. So just a tiny bit of, I think you can see that, just a tiny bit of white in your black. If you put a lot of white in and then it's too light, then just squirt out a little bit more black and just, you just take the edge off it a little bit. Or you can have a little bit of both. But once I've mixed that up, I have way too much paint all over my brush. So I definitely want to wipe it off. Having a cloth handy when you're getting to something that you're using a small brush for is like pretty important, because you can just kind of wipe it without having to think about it in between. Or if you're in a point where you're gonna have a little bit of here, a little bit of color here, and a little color here. You don't need to rinse your brush. You just wipe it off, and then you get another color, and wipe it off and get another color. And because the water gets all over everything, and you don't need it. Okay. I mean, a great big fat brush that you painted the whole sky with is going to have a lot of paint on it. You're really going to need to rinse it off, but a little one doesn't hold that much. Okay. All right. So we're going to get some of this black on here. Let's start with these few trees we have out here. So this one has kind of a little one, and then another skinny one, and then it has like 2 or 3 fatter ones, and they don't have any on, and this one doesn't have anything on this side. That doesn't mean that you can't, put your darker trees any way you want. And what the idea is they're darker because they're closer to us, and there's not all that foggy atmosphere that's making them look light, which is what's happening with the purple ones. So it will look like these are closer to us. Okay. So I've got a little brush, I got a little bit of this paint. I think maybe I'll start right here and put something out this way. And what I want to do is that line. And then, of course, if it's going to be thicker, it's at the base. So I might want to start just like about halfway up and come down and just make that part a little bit thicker. Right? And then if I want, I could just, that's a good place to kind of branch it. The more you hold your paintbrush perpendicular to your paper, like straight like this versus like this, if I go straight at it, you're going to hit the tip of your brush and it's going to make that skinny line. And the lighter you touch, sometimes going up is sometimes a good thing to do branches with, because as you pull up, you'll pull the brush away and they'll get thinner. Okay. But if you hold it like this and you rub down really hard and you go back and forth, you're going to have great big fat thick branches. So you have to force yourself to just touch really lightly, and don't worry about having a straight line. If it's wiggly or is light and dark, you know, that's fine. It's better than having them too thick. I mean, I think it takes practice to get skinnier lines, but it's worth trying to do it, right? Just have to think of that, I guess. All right, so put, you know, maybe a couple of thicker trees, maybe a couple of skinny ones, whatever fits, whatever you want. But just remember that if you put one right in the middle where the bridge is, that kind of means the tree's in the middle of the water. This is kind of a peculiar setup because there ought to be a little bit of land back here, but I think we're going to try to avoid having to deal with it. Because this one doesn't do it and it doesn't really matter, so I don't know why we would have to. Yeah. Oops. A little bit of water too will help keep that paint thin and it won't dry brush. Yeah, so.
Are you talking about the bridge? Would you consider doing a pencil?
No. No, you silly girl. Okay, so the thing I would suggest is take a look at on here right now and kind of see what this picture looks like versus what this picture looks like as far as the darks and lights. And I think you can see that, you know, this is all right, but it's a lot darker right in here. Make this a little bit darker under here, right? It's a lot darker right in those areas. And then also just kind of defining the bridge. So it's up to you, you know, how much you want to put on there, but it is definitely a bigger change. So I'm going to stick with this little brush, and to do the stones here, one of the things you know is the keystone, right? So, and again, it's if they're different sizes and they're little shaky lines and things like that, that's perfect for this because it shouldn't look too perfect, right? So, and these are different sizes, but what you might do is say, you know, there's going to be something here in the middle, and then, you know, you can either just stripe it, kind of like, you know, thinking sort of like wedges of an orange, like how it's going to go around. They're not all going to go straight up and down. And after you do that, then you could just kind of connect the pieces. And I think what might happen is we'll let this dry while we're finishing the other parts, and then you can kind of go in and put a little bit more green in there, and that can make the grout bits a little bit thinner, depending on how you do it. Or you could just make it a lighter gray if it seems too heavy, or what else? Or a brown or something. Right, so you want to do that on inside and outside. And then also let's hit that shadow in there again too. I guess the thicker we make this shadow that's under here, the thicker the bridge is. Wider the bridge is. The way we're doing it right now, we're standing a little over to this side looking at it. So if you were smack in the middle, you'd see kind of the whole underside is darker because you'd be right in the middle looking at it. You know, like if you're in Venice and you're about to go under one of the bridges and you're straight in the middle, you're going to see the whole inside of that archway evenly. You know, it's not wrong if you have black on the other side too. All right. Let's put a little black on this underside shadow here too. And you want to paint that kind of side to side. If it gets a little thinned out in the middle, that'd be all right. I'd start a little bit on the side and push in, and then push in from the other side. And like I said, a little dry brush in the middle is okay. It's funny how it just goes from being so blah, and then all of a sudden it just starts.
And all of a sudden, less
blossoms. I'm not gonna do a lot of stones on the sides here, just for times. I mean, you can do it if you want to, but it's for time. All right, so the other places that it's gonna have the dark is along the edges of the water. And the thing would be is that it would be less, and I'm gonna kind of just do it sort of like the up brush strokes that kind of go up, but they would be smaller and thinner like here, and then they would get a little bit bigger and more intense as we get down there, down closer to the bottom, because it's closer to us, so it looks bigger. It's the same thing, only looks bigger. If it, if it doesn't come out like that, that's all right. Isn't it? I think too, if you get this dark on here and then you're like, that doesn't look like it fits, you can just, just sweep a little bit more of the lighter colors over it once it dries, and it will just kind of sink in there. But I think that's kind of what is happening in this picture, so I thought this was a good time to try that. All right, so what I'm going to do is kind of start in here and just make some little, not just up, I guess just kind of like back and forth. Yeah, maybe what I'm going to have to do too is then brush them like into the water a little bit like this. I guess it's a little bit horizontal in the water and a little bit up and down along the grass. A little water too for anything you're doing that is reflection in the water. The thinner the paint is, sometimes the more it sort of rests on the water. Get a little water in the paint. All right, I'm going to put a little dark where the bank meets the bridge as well, kind of like right in here. And my paint's a little bit thin out, so no, a little thinned out, a little water in there, a little, more of a waft if possible. We'll kind of make it soak into that green a little bit. Yeah, the key kind of like at the end of your painting is, depending on how you're doing it, is to just not get too much paint on, because it won't dry, it won't soak in as much. And so a little bit will go a lot, where in the beginning of it, the more you put on, slop on, the easier it is to just spread it around and get moving. So, but we want to have a little reflection of the green that's in this mossy, this bridge in the water. That's kind of like, and you could also have a little of the yellow in there too. And the other thing is maybe putting a little bit of more green on this to kind of, and so I get a little bit more green. I'm going to put that with my brown here. So it's a little brown and a little bit of green. And just to put this kind of like a little bit of a second coat on here. This is just, but if I, some of these, well, I guess that's a little weird, but so I put a little bit too much brown on here, but got my cloth here. Maybe take a little more light green, spread that in there. And as I paint in these little stones here, I'll make those black, because what ultimately the black lines are the grout between the stones. So if the stone should be bigger and, like, if anything, overlap that. So I guess basically what I'm saying is you can put kind of a second coat of green on, but they don't have to be the exact same shade of green everywhere. You might want something that's a little bit darker. And if you just paint over the black lines a little bit, they'll just kind of get, sink in there a little bit more. That's what I was going to say about that, is a little second coat. And the other thing would be to put a little bit in the water. And the easiest thing, yeah, that shows a little bit. You know, it is an arch, so in a way you could have some lines that kind of went. The lines have to go side to side and not too spread out. If you just kind of one here, one here, one here, I find that that's kind of where people will go wrong. It just doesn't set on the water. So it's okay to have them, even if they don't go in a perfect shape, to have them a little bit longer. All right. And if you get them on there and you're a little bit suspicious of how it looks, you can always go back in with your purple and, you know, add a little more purple in here too. But even though it's a river and it's running this way, your lines still go side to side. And yeah, so you can, let's see, all my paint's drying up. I wouldn't worry about doing it out here. I think that'll help to keep this looks kind of misty out there. Maybe a little bit of a layer like this. It's like water, and sky is hitting it. That might make sense. You know, when in doubt, a little white, because the sky's so light, you can just take a little bit of white, put that on top. But with this, everything can have a second coat and can have a little texture and can have a little variation of color and stuff. Like I can also cut this little green thing up with a little bit of water. With if it looks too solid, like when you put the green on there, just take some light purple and kind of just brush it through it, and it will break it up into like little waves. Oh yeah, I think that's pretty much it. What do you think, Veronica? You're done. I know you are. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Well, I can't think of it. A Bigfoot, a little teeny tiny Bigfoot out in your woods. You can do that. Or like I said, you can have a blood-soaked bridge. All right. So thank you. And if you need help, I mean, if you want to send me a picture and let me know, and I'll give you some feedback on that, I'm happy to do that. Let me get the gallery up. Sorry about the problems in the beginning. Oh my goodness. It looked great. Oh, look at that.
I'm still working on trees.
Oh, I love it, Amy. Oh my gosh. Yeah. You were all working really hard and they came out really good. Okay.
All right, keep working on mine too.
I'll count from 3. All right. 3, 2, 1. Yay! Oh
Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah, nice job. Nice job, everybody.
Thank you, Valerie.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for coming.